Hi, welcome back to The Fuse Show, everybody. My name is Jim. I'm the co-founder of Xfusion.io and the co-host of The Fuse Show. I'm excited to be joined today by my guest, Andrew Forman. Andrew is the founder and CEO of Givz. Prior to founding Givz, Andrew spent 6 years in investment banking and was the treasurer of a nonprofit organization. He holds an MBA from Harvard Business School and a BA in mathematics and economics from Hamilton College. He lives in New York and is a proud dad of a 2-year-old daughter and a newborn son, and still tries to find time for recreational sports. Thanks for being on the show with us, Andrew.
Thanks, Jim. Really excited to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. So let's jump right into this. I see your education history, Harvard MBA, and then you went to be an employee several times over. And I want to know more about the transition from employee to the entrepreneurial space.
Yeah. So on the employee side, so I came out of undergrad going into investment banking. We can actually get back into at some point why I did investment banking in the first place, how I ended up running a nonprofit while doing the investment banking side of things. But yeah, I went from investment banking to a smaller boutique investment banking shop, stayed there for 5 years. And then I really wanted to figure out what my calling was in life. I had been having some good times on the investment banking side, but really searching for that more entrepreneurial spirit side of things, as well as making an impact. And so on the nonprofit side, I rolled off the nonprofit. I was still searching for that impact piece. I said, why don't I apply to business school? That's feels like a good transitionary period.
Sure.
Apply to business school, see if there's I didn't actually think I was going to start something on my own. I thought that I'd join a team, something to do with social impact and business and mixing the two. And ended up here on the Givz side of things right after business school.
That's exciting. Let's transition into to Givz. I want to know more about what it is and what y'all do in the audience that you serve.
Sure. So we help brands convert discounts into donations. We see 2 huge trends happening in e-commerce today. First is that brands are trying to get away from discounts as much as possible because they recognize that it is a race to the bottom at the end of the day, and it brings in the lowest lifetime value customers.
Yes.
And that's the first big trend that every single CMO and marketing team is talking about. How do we get that sales spike, keep the sales spike, but get away from discounts? That's one. And the second big trend is that consumers are demanding some sort of purpose-driven activity from brands now more than ever. So how do you do that in a genuine and authentic manner when you have thousands, if not millions of customers that all care about totally different things? It's really hard. Mm-hmm. So we sit at the nexus of those 2 trends, allowing brands to run donation incentive campaigns instead of coupon-based incentive campaigns, or in conjunction with. So instead of doing, spend $100, get $20 off, you could do spend $100, get $20 to give to a charity of your choice. People pay full price, and that actually converts just as well, if not better, than the discount.
That's surprising.
And
it's really amazing, actually, but very, very interesting.
No, and you're right for saying it's surprising. For us, when we first started this, we actually started the business, and I know you like to get into how did this all come about. So
for sure,
I might be jumping the gun here a bit, but
please.
When I graduated from business school and launched into Givz full time, we actually started it as a Venmo for charity direct to consumer app. So It was nothing like what we do now. So we can also talk about the pivot in transition within Givz that happened about 1.5 years ago. But I started it as a Venmo for charity from my old experience of being a treasurer and people Venmoing me dollars for my charity instead of using our website, our quote unquote crappy website, to donate. Okay. They said, hey, we're gonna Venmo you personally the money. And I said, please don't do that. And that was the only way that they were going to give us money. So that's how they did it. And that's how it went down. And it was just a disaster on that side. So I said, we need a Venmo for charitable giving. And that's what I initially started Givz as. And then about 2 years into that whole process, 2 brands came to me and said, hey, we want to reward our customers with dollars on your platform instead of discounts. And we want to see if that moves the needle for them. And so I was like, yeah, let's try it. Not really expecting to see the results that we got, which were the first brand did a strict A/B test on Facebook. They said, A test, sign up with us now, we'll give you $50 off. B-test, sign up with us now. Same creative, same everything, but the words were sign up now and we'll give you $30 to give to charity. And that performed 20% better from a conversion
That is
standpoint.
shocking.
Yeah. Crazy.
That's crazy.
Crazy.
People need to know that. Like, I mean, otherwise money, maybe this is a stretch, but it seems like money's being wasted if it's not being donated. Like that's, honestly, that's counterintuitive. And I don't think most brands would realize that would be the case.
That's exactly right. And so we did that the first time. I said, that's super interesting. Let's see what happens with the second brand. Same thing. And we said,
wow.
Okay, this is what we do now. First of all, pivoted the whole business on those two case studies.
Fair enough.
And then now I have this conversation with my investors all the time. I'm like, hey, we just ran another campaign. They saw a 38% lift in average order value compared to their discount campaigns. Isn't this awesome? And they're like, yes, this is awesome. You have to stop being surprised by these results. You see it over and over again. This is what you do, right? This is how it goes. And so it works. Make it happen on a bigger scale.
That's awesome. I'm looking at your site and then looking over at your Shopify listing. Are you primarily serving the Shopify ecosystem?
So we actually were primarily not serving the Shopify ecosystem initially. Now we're available for Shopify. So we signed on some very large brands like H&M, Tervis, Smile Direct, and some others that did initial pilot programs with us that all went really well. In the middle of a pandemic, enterprise sales is its own huge behemoth that you have to figure out. We brought some top-notch investors on, and they said, hey, let's build a scalable product-led growth type of product that you can actually scale and not have to build out an enterprise sales team at the moment for. And so we've pivoted the focus to really try to figure out how do we make a solution where nobody has to talk to Andrew, nobody has to talk to me, nobody has to talk to anybody on the Givz side and can set up and start replacing their discounts with donations.
I see. Now, are you targeting primarily Shopify Plus users?
That is the end goal on our side. That being said, we do have a lot of Shopify basic users as well. It is fully self-serve. You can go on, install, and be up and running within 10 minutes.
Oh, that's great. And what about the Magento ecosystem or other e-commerce platforms?
So those are clear growth areas for us. We want to try to focus in, master the Shopify ecosystem, really be strong players there. We already can, we already have the solution, an API solution that can work with any platform. So we do have some Magento customers. We do have some BigCommerce and WooCommerce clients as well. And then, of course, like an H&M or somebody like that, it has their own custom build platform that they don't actually use any of those folks. We also have some Salesforce Cloud folks. So we have folks ranging everywhere, but the big push, the big self-serve piece is really on Shopify.
Yeah, and I haven't checked this recently. I used to be much more in this world than I am now. But last time I checked, Shopify Plus was really gaining ground on Magento in terms of like enterprise shops choosing Shopify Plus over Magento.
Definitely seeing that trend. Shopify's stock price kind of says it all, right? Just shooting through the moon. Yeah. But there's a lot of bigger brands deciding to roll with Shopify Plus. You saw Netflix open their store on Shopify Plus. There's a big movement towards Shopify Plus.
Yeah, and recently I'm sure you've heard that Shopify did away with a 20% fee that they were charging developers of apps for I think it's first million in revenue. Yeah. Which is pretty incredible. I mean, that's will increase the ecosystem of developers building for Shopify.
Absolutely. And they also added a little like $99 fee to also add an app, which I like because you can't just like spam apps out there, right? You have to actually pay at least a little bit of something to get your app up there. But then on the first million you take in, they did away with the 20%, and then they actually lowered the 20% thereafter to 15% all time. So I think that's really, really interesting and nice and a good move by them. I think they saw the writing on the wall with Apple and at 30% and what's going on there with the developers. And I think this is a good innovative move that Shopify just keeps hitting the nail on the head.
Agreed. Yeah. Now you guys recently raised a seed round, right? I'm curious what led to that decision.
Yeah. So on our side, we were initially rolling with this, Venmo for charitable giving. As soon as we saw the results from this B2B SaaS side of things, we said, "Oh, this is actually the right direction for us to go." we see a huge opportunity. It comes down to a lot of different factors. What do you want this business to be? How fast do you want to try to grow it? Is it a lifestyle type of thing? Are you trying to have impact, profit?
Sure.
You know, all of those factors go in. For us, I felt that my personality, our team's personality, we thrive under the pressure, under the gun. We will ultimately send more money to charity if we can align. And this is the whole thesis of the whole company and of my whole life, basically. But if we can align doing good with actual profitability and the bottom line, and make it a no-brainer choice that you have to over and over again choose to run Givz because it's going to outperform anything else and just happens to send money to charity, that's the way that we're going to send billions of dollars to charity. So we chose to take on VC funding. It's a very intimate choice. It's something where the folks that you are taking money from, you're not just taking money from them, but you have to be aligned to their views. And the lead investors that we had in ENIAC and Accomplice, in particular, Vic Singh at ENIAC and TJ Mahoney, who just started his own fund called Vinyl, and has, you know, hooks into Accomplice. Those two guys have seen it all. Especially in marketing tech, they've seen email come up, and they've invested in Klaviyo and Privy. They've seen SMS come up, and they invested in Attentive and Postscript, and they're in all of these deals, and from the very seed stage, and they see those as pipes. That how do you reach your customer? Email is going to become a huge thing. SMS is going to become a huge thing. Those things become billion-dollar industries. Those pipes need a message to be carried. What message are they carrying? Yeah. And I firmly believe, and these guys, you know, gave me extra confidence to believe that Givz is the message that email, SMS, all of these pipes need to be carrying because it converts the best, and it happens to do some good.
Why is it important to you to do good? I mean, you mentioned this a couple minutes ago as you were speaking, but I want to know a little bit more about why that's important to you.
I think it really comes back to just the way I grew up thinking about the world, trying to make sure that you leave the world a better place than when you were here. There's a huge, I go back to this story of back in high school, just back in the DNA of when things are forming in your brain. Sure. And I had a serious high school girlfriend basically all through high school. The only thing we'd fight about is how do you have a bigger impact, right? Do you graduate from college and go into the Peace Corps and volunteer and help somebody very, very tangibly? Or do you graduate from college, go into investment banking, make as much money as you can and fund the Peace Corps, right? Like that was my stance, clearly. Uh-huh. And I said, sure, you know, that's the way you have a bigger impact. And of course we were 17 trying to figure this out. And it's like, you need both sides of the coin there. But we actually graduated from college and she went straight into the Peace Corps. I went straight into investment banking and we never spoke again, but that's not the point. The point is that I went into investment banking. I saw that I was not going to make nearly enough money to fund the Peace Corps or something even close. So I immediately started a nonprofit so that I could actually make some tangible impact. And I've just always felt that impact and profits needed to be linked. And this is now the full manifestation of that. I knew that the money, people make decisions based on the money, especially in the capitalist society that we live in. Brands are not going to run Givz if it doesn't have a positive ROI associated with it. You can sign. Yeah,
so it's, you're aligning incentives.
Exactly.
It's kind of like pre-Tesla, most people didn't buy electric vehicles because they were kind of dweeby.
Right. Exactly.
Now they're not. So you have a lot of accidental environmentalists who are like, well, like, I'm doing good for the environment. Look at me, but I drive a badass car,
Exactly. Exactly right.
Yeah. It's interesting. This is a bit of a tangent, I guess, but related. I used to be a crimes against children detective, and I did that for 5 years, and it was incredibly rewarding, but also emotionally draining. But one of the most challenging parts of that was I was constantly disappointed in my inability to affect change on a larger scale because I was just one person and there's only so many hours in the day. And I was extremely passionate about what I did.
Unbelievable.
But limited And I thought what there needs to be, and this is something that's kind of our big why at Xfusion, is like, we want to create cash flow that we can push into nonprofits. One of those being fighting against child sex trafficking and other child crimes, and building out a network, a team of people that can help law enforcement fight those types of crimes, because there's significant resources problems, et cetera. So it's that idea of like, how do you scale passion to serve the people that you care about serving?
That's super interesting. And I read that in your bio, and I was thinking about like, I would love to learn more about how did that happen. I'm sure this must be a conversation for another day, but how did you get into that, and what was that like on a day-to-day basis? Like, how do you get up, and dealing with that stuff every day just seems so grueling. It
is, and it's really hard to fight against cynicism. And one of the things that I noticed in that world, and I think this is true for emergency services in general, military, nurses, doctors, et cetera, is it just, after a period of time, most people become cynical or they leave. Mm-hmm. I mean, depression rate, suicide rate is very high in this world. It's difficult. It's also depleting at times because it's hard to affect change. There's so many challenges in the justice system. And I mean, certainly it's better than most other places, but it's not perfect, and there's lots of challenges. And I think that what is needed is, I guess, more balance, and I don't know, there's a sense of accomplishment that comes from knowing that you're doing good and making progress towards your mission. So when that happens, it's refreshing, and when it doesn't, it's incredibly depleting. I don't know. There's times that I regret leaving that world. It all works out, right? And it's like, I couldn't have had the opportunity to create a nonprofit, into the future without the cash flow to do so. I would have never been able to do that from my salary in law enforcement. Yep. So, but yeah, anyway, I'd love to talk to you more about that, right? I love your passion and alignment on doing good. And one other thing on this topic, this has been something that has been a theme that I've been processing. And I think about people like Elon Musk, and there are many others. He's just the one that comes to mind. I'm listening to his biography, which is quite good. Anyway, but I think that making money is a result of him furthering his passion and his mission. He has these ridiculous ideas of establishing a colony on Mars and completely changing the way that we, handle transportation with electric vehicles. And the consequence of that is money, but it's not what he's passionate about. Right. And I see this with founders those that are focused on the money almost never go as far as those that are passionate about the problem that they're solving. The money's just a consequence of adding value to the world. Totally. Yeah. Do you see it that way, or do you feel differently? I do. I think that sometimes I need to have even more outlandish thoughts and lean into those outlandish thoughts. I tend to try to be as practical as humanly possible. And I'm realizing that especially as a founder and CEO, might not be the way to go all the time, right? I think there are definitely benefits to it, but there are definitely real hindrances to it as well. You need to be a little bit out there and stick to your guns and have not the people pleasing attitude of, some people are going to be upset by this, but I don't care, because this is what I believe, and this is what is going to happen. Yeah. Well, I can't get over the aligned incentives aspect of this, because the reality is Givz is never going to work at scale just because it's a giving model. Exactly. It's going to work because there's an incentive for the shop owners to implement it because of the results that they see. Exactly. And then it doesn't matter if they're aligned in the same way you are with the greater picture mission. You're still accomplishing that goal in spite of that. That's exactly right. And so I've described it at some point, and I should probably not say this, especially not while it's recorded, but in some point I'm like, I'm tricking store owners into doing good. But I don't care, as long as the money is going to the charities, and as long as the people, I think there's ancillary benefits that I never even really talk about, right? Which in my mind, 15,000 people allocating $10 to the charity of their choice. Yeah, it's $150,000 that's going to charity. That's fantastic. Bunch of different charities are going to be supported. That's great. The brand gets to see that. They can hopefully market to those people and get them to drive more sales and drive more good in the next campaign, et cetera, et cetera. But that's also 15,000 people that have to stop and think, what do I support? What do I want to give to? And that's something that
has a knock-on effect that not super measurable, but we had one woman email us and say, hey, I totally forgot in the midst of all this COVID stuff that I used to support this charity all the time. and now that I had $10 from H&M or from whoever gave it to her, I actually, reached out to them, and turns out they're back open for volunteering, and I went and volunteered last week. Like that.
Oh, that is so cool.
Yeah.
Wow. Kind of a second order consequence that
Totally.
you probably weren't anticipating.
Totally.
Oh, that is really neat. Wow, that's really cool. So I'm curious, and then we'll move on from this. But so, how are the charities chosen? Does the brand like H&M choose them? Are there choices that the consumer can pick from? How does that work?
Yeah, so each brand gets to highlight the charities that they care about most. So if they have a partnership with charity already, or 3 charities that they really care about, or even just we help them curate. We've seen dozens of beauty brands try this out, right? So if you're a beauty brand in this space with this type of target customer, we can suggest 3 charities that we know resonate with that customer well. But the brand generally suggests 3 customers that the person can choose from, so that they don't get the search bar stare, which is just like, here's a search bar, donate to any charity. You're like, okay, here's 3 options that we really care about. But the search bar is always there, and people can donate to any charity that they wish. There's over 250,000 charities in the PayPal Giving Fund database. So that's our partner in this and distribution partner. And so if you own a charity and you're not enrolled in the PayPal Giving Fund, you should. It's no cost to you, and it makes this very, very seamless.
That's great. Okay, I want to pan out a little bit and talk more about you. I'm curious what your primary areas of interest or expertise lie in, and we can drill down once I kind of have an overview of what you're passionate about.
Yeah, so I started a nonprofit and really the CEO of that nonprofit gets all the credit. She was the one who went to Jamestown. They asked children asking her for books, not money or food, but just books, and kind of like a pencil promise type of story. We ran a nonprofit where we did book drives all across the tri-state area, shipped books to Jamestown, Ghana, and ended up running an after-school program there with NYU study abroad students that went to Jamestown during the summers. So that was the nonprofit that we worked on. All that to say, very passionate about kids in general, education, and also love like the Play 60 side of things, and getting people out and trying to get away from the phones and the devices and go to outside and run around and play sports. I'm very big into sports in general as a hobby, as I had in the bio there. Still try to make time for recreational sports. That's the one thing that I'm trying to hold on to, despite having 2 little ones, and obviously starting the business. If I don't play basketball or even flag football or something that is a meaningful sport in some way, shape, or form, for a couple of weeks, my wife is like, you gotta go do something. So you're getting restless. Totally. Big in sports there. And then in terms of math and music, I was a math major, and also played an instrument in the orchestra in college. So I actually played football and then played an instrument in orchestra. I'll give you one guess, and then we'll move on, because there's no chance you'll get it.
Cello?
It's a good guess. I played the bassoon.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Insane. So totally different. But it was the one instrument that you could not march with in marching bands. So my high school band teacher, when I was playing saxophone, expected me to change at halftime and play saxophone in the marching band during the football games, and I was like, that's not happening. And so the creative solution, instead of quitting band, which was what I was going to do, was find an instrument that doesn't play in the marching band. And now there's and one that nobody plays, and she needed it, and so that was the real lesson there. But yeah, love music.
It's a great story. That's awesome. So what about in the business sense? What are your areas of strength in business?
Yeah, so on my side, I guess, fundraising is something coming from the investment banking realm. Happy to talk about fundraising and how that goes. I think embedded in that is sales, as well as, and figuring out how to align incentives for all stakeholders, and getting large deals done with a small team. I think that's probably where I excel at the moment.
Let's spend a little time on that, because so we've interviewed over 150 founders, and probably 90+% of those are funded. And yet David and I, my co-founder and I, are bootstrapped. So we're not opposed to funding. It just doesn't make sense with our type of business at the moment.
Sure.
But I'm fascinated by the idea. And one of the things I've been trying to tease out is, when it comes to decision-making from the VC, how much weight is applied to the idea, and then versus, or in addition to, the founder and his or her passions. Like, you're obviously, like, for me personally, if I was to invest, the person, their background experience, and their passion, incredibly important to me. If I sense that you're all about the money, I'm just not as interested. But when I feel that passion, then that gets me really interested. But I'm not an investor, so I don't know. So, like, do you see that? Like, what is the general, like, process that they use to make decisions?
Yeah, and it's obviously stage dependent, right? But those VCs that are investing in pre-seed deals or seed deals, but especially pre-seed deals, they'll tell you they're betting on the founder, right? They're betting on the founder and the founding team, and that's something that they hear all the time. You need to have the passion. My wife is actually a VC, so I'm oddly able to answer this question with a little bit more authority, although we try to separate church and state as much as possible. But she, when she comes home to say she's doing a deal and she's something she's excited about, it's almost never, let me tell you about how cool this company is. It is almost always, this woman is going to crush it. That's it, right? It's like this guy has been thinking about this problem for 2 decades and is now in a position to take it over. It's always about the founder and the passion, always.
So what is your wife, in this example, trying to tease out in terms of, like, what attributes would you say that she's looking for in the founder of the founding team?
I think the number one is grit. I think that's the number one thing that she's looking for. This person is going to grind this out and do everything possible and be maniacal about success, whatever that looks like. But they are going to be gritty as all hell and make sure that if this category is to take off, they're going to be the leader in it because they just care about it so much.
Oh, that's so interesting. So basically the idea itself has to meet I'm sure, a minimum standard. It's got to be a not stupid idea.
Definitely.
But then it comes down to the founder and their level of grit, passion, etc.
I think it comes down to that, and then the market size, even less so than the idea, but the market that they're tackling, right? So, like, even if, like, I've even heard her and others say, I don't think this is the idea that they're going to end up doing, right? So if someone were to invest in me and actually, funnily enough, one of our investors did see me pitch 3 years ago on the Venmo for charity side, and he was like, "Okay, I like that founder, I don't like that idea." Okay. And then when he saw this come back around and it turned it into what it was, he was like, "That's interesting, and I'm going to fund that, right?" And that's okay. and so I think that's a good example. I guess in some senses there might have been, depending on how much he didn't like the idea. Maybe if he felt a little bit better about the Venmo charity and said, you know what, this is not exactly what I think he's going to end up doing, but I do think he's going to own this space, they could invest there. Yeah, that makes sense. And then how much weight would you give an Ivy League education, for example, versus, maybe even no education and experience? It's hard for me to really opine on that, given I have the benefit of that, and I know that it's helpful in a ton of ways, and networking wise, sure, it's super, super, super helpful. I do think that I look at the founders that my wife has backed, et cetera, et cetera. I don't think any of them have Ivy League educations. She's always like, certainly does not think about that. And quite frankly, the grittiness piece, right? HBS doesn't always scream gritty, right? So you really have to prove that with your actions, and then there are some folks that that she's funded. These kids are, and I say kids these days because I'm now a decade older than more than a decade older people coming out of college. But like, 23 years old, either didn't graduate from college, whatever it is, but starting a skincare brand that's going to absolutely crush because this person is gritty. She can see that, she loves that, and it's almost never, have the higher education background.
Yeah, that's interesting. One of the things I want to transition to talk to you about is your thoughts on being married to the outcome or the end result. Like, obviously you're trying to grow Givz, like that's the objective, and you want to further your mission. How do you think of, I don't know if we call it goals or planning in the future? Like, do you think like, oh, we want to achieve this amount of revenue in this amount of time? Or is it based on just actions on a daily basis? I'm curious how you break that down. Yeah.
So for me, the highest piece is I'm on this mission to send $1 billion to charity through Givz.
Okay.
That's how I think about it.
I like that.
I hope that it can be many billions, but for me, the gritty scrappiness piece is like, I'm not going to stop until we've sent $1 billion to charity. Now, we just crossed the $1 million threshold, so I have a long way to go. But
that's exciting progress.
Yeah.
That's
totally
exceptional.
Totally. We're excited about it. And I don't mean to belittle that at all, but I'm 1 billionth of the way, or whatever. I'm one, not billionth. I guess that would be $1, but, 1 million of a billion of the way there. Okay,
sure.
Fine. So I'm 1/100th, 1/1000th. Let's get it right. 1/1000th of the way there. That's right. Math major over here, really showing my stuff.
Hey, we got there.
1/1000th of the way there. But that's and really that's just getting started. There's $50 billion given away in discounts every single year in the United States alone. So if we can tap into that, and like you said at the beginning of this, it's just wasted, right? So if we were to get 100% market share, which nobody ever gets 100% market share, but if we were to wipe discounts off the face of the earth, which also we're not going to do, but I do think we are disrupting discounts in a huge way, $50 billion at a 50% redemption rate, so people end up donating the money half the time after they're rewarded it. That would mean that $25 billion a year is going to charity extra, and $25 billion in extra profit to the companies that are running these campaigns. That's heaven, right? If we could get 10% of that, that's an extra $2.5 billion every year going to charity. So the billion is just the beginning, but that's what I think of when I think of like, what are we aiming for?
I like that. I want to peel the onion back a little bit on this, because that's very much aligned with our mission as well at Xfusion. And that is, we want to provide 10,000 high quality, high paying, fully remote, autonomous careers in developing countries in 10 years. And like, that's a big challenge. And we're all super passionate about that because of the quality of work environments in many foreign countries is poor. A lot of people have 3 to 4 hour commutes. It's awful. So we're able to, like, in what we're doing is working in the sense that we've been around for like roughly a year and a half. We have clients from the very beginning. Like, we have a proof of concept, like it's actually working. So now we need to figure out how to scale. But what I'm getting at here is like, that is the big picture goal. And we've assigned a timeline to that honestly makes me a little bit nervous. And I don't know how realistic that is. We're going to shoot for it. But even if it takes 15 years, whatever, or maybe it's 20,000 jobs in 15, I don't know.
Right,
but
right.
the point I'm trying to drill down to is that is our overarching mission. Just like you wanted to provide $1 billion in charity. Do you input like micro goals underneath that, or is everything else kind of a lesser included? Because the reality is, like, if we can get to 10,000 full-time employees, revenue for the business is going to be a side benefit of that.
Totally.
Yes. I mean, do you see it that way, or do you break it down further?
Yeah, no, I do. I mean, revenue is, for us, we've actually now linked our revenue to the amount of money that we send to charities. So that definitely means a good amount of revenue for us, and it means we have a ton of clients paying the SaaS fees on top of that. So that's going to mean a lot of revenue for us. It's going to mean we're a big business ourselves, and we're going to be able to give back in other ways as well, part of our profits, but also being able to just make it better, make the product better, we have that. We can donate, and it's kind of what we were talking about earlier. We can donate our own funds, but if we can get every single business, and this is going to be table stakes in the next 3 to 5 years, every single business is going to be donating. because it's better for them, and at the end of the day, that's the major impact that we're looking to have. In terms of breaking it down further, we're doing everything from quarterly OKRs. So what are our objectives for Q4? We've just been going through that exercise this week, all the way through to, what are the things that we need to hit for the next fundraise. So when you asked about like fundraising versus bootstrapping, again, personality wise, super interesting. For once you go down the VC route, and like everything now comes back to, all right, what do you need to prove to get to the next level for the next fundraise, right? And that's kind of a helpful step function as well.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, we're getting short on time. I want to end with this. If you were to give advice to your former self, and you can pick the time period, 5, 10, 15 years, based on what you've learned so far and the experience that you've gathered, what would you say to your younger self?
It's a good question. What would I say to my younger self? I would have said, trust your gut and start something earlier. Start something earlier. And when you actually start something, hire somebody and fire somebody quickly, so that you know that everybody's going to be okay when you do have to go through that. It's a very, very tough thing to do. But I would say, in general, trust your gut, do things quicker.
That's good. So I know every situation is different, but to founders let's say soon to be founders that are still working a full-time job, would you advocate in most cases for them to just jump?
I don't know that I necessarily would say jump. I would say, get an MVP out there. Get an MVP out there. You don't even have to leave your job. Just do what it is you think. Perfection is the enemy of whatever that saying is, right?
Progress, right?
Perfection is the enemy of progress.
It's good.
You have to just do it. Just get something out there. Don't leave your job even, I'd say get something out there. And try it. And you're going to say, if I don't leave my job, then I'm not going to, be giving it my all. Fine. If even not your all, if nobody's biting on it, it's not because you're not giving it your all per se. It's maybe not, you need to work on the idea then, right? Like get it out there in some way, shape or form, put it in Google Sheets, do it manually, Mechanical Turk it, just get it out there.
Yeah. Love it. Well, Andrew, thank you. I want to direct people's attention to your website. It's Givz, Givz.com. And then you have a Shopify App Store listing as well under Givz donation-driven marketing. What's the best way for people to reach out if they're interested in saying hello or interested in the product?
Yeah, you can always email me, Andrew, ANDREW, @GIVZ.com. If you're a retailer looking to implement this, would love to get you set up. If you're a tech partner or an agency partner, would love to get you into our partnership program. And if you just want to say hello and network, would love to chat.
Awesome. Thanks, Andrew. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you. Really appreciate it.
All right. Cheers.
Thanks.